3 years ago, I went on a winter camping trip with friends. I was 30 then, just a software developer looking for a break from screens and work stress. We chose the woods of northern Wisconsin, where tall pine trees stood like silent giants and a frozen lake gleamed in the winter sun. I'd camped before, but this was my first time in winter. I still can't stop thinking about that trip. The first night, we sat around the fire, laughing and feeling good to be away from it all. But then, I got a strange feeling, like something was watching us. I glanced around. My friends were just enjoying the flames, sharing stories. I shook it off, telling myself it was the cold messing with my head. As the days passed, odd things started happening. One night I woke up needing to go to the bathroom. The cold hit me hard when I stepped out of my tent. A few steps into the snow, I heard it. Faint footsteps. I froze, straining to listen. Nothing. Maybe it was just an animal? I went back inside, my heart racing a bit. The next morning, I woke to find strange symbols etched into the snow near our tents. They looked like scratches, almost like writing, but I couldn't figure out what they said. I called my friends over. They laughed it off, thinking it was some weird winter message. But I felt a chill that went beyond the freezing air. The temperature dropped suddenly. I pulled my jacket tight. I looked up at the trees. They swayed slightly, but there was no wind. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. In my mind, I started to wonder if I was breaking down under too much screen time. Later that night I heard footsteps again. They were closer this time. I peeked outside my tent, my heart pounding. I couldn't see anyone around. I stepped outside, trying to calm down. My breath fogged the air, swirling in the firelight. The campsite was eerily empty. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A shadow flickered between trees. I wanted to call out, but I hesitated. Then I heard my name whispered in the wind. Jake. I felt a jolt in my chest. I turned around. Nobody was there. I still wonder what happened those nights in the woods. Were those footsteps real? Did anyone else hear them? I think about those strange symbols. What did they mean? Maybe I just let the isolation mess with my mind. Whatever it was, I can't shake the feeling that something watched us that weekend. It's been 3 years, and I've gone camping again. But I can't escape that trip. The whispers, the footsteps, the symbols in the snow. They still haunt me. There's a part of me that wants answers. Another part just wants to forget. But every winter, I feel that unease creeping back, leaving me to wonder what really happened in those woods. It was a chilly evening in late January when I decided to take a drive up to northern Wisconsin again. 3 years had passed since that first camping trip, but the memories loomed large. I felt drawn to the woods, yet a part of me was terrified. I thought seeing the sight would help me put my questions to rest. As I parked the car, silence enveloped me. The world outside was a blanket of white, untouched by human presence. It felt surreal being back. I took a deep breath, trying to dismiss the creeping anxiety. The air was sharp and clean, and the trees towered over me, casting long shadows on the snow. Walking to the spot where we had set up camp, I noticed the remnants of our fire pit. The logs we used to sit on were still scattered around, half buried in drifts of snow. I had expected things to feel different, but they felt the same. It was as if time had paused. I knelt down, fingers grazing the ground, and I wished I could unravel whatever mystery was left here. Then I remembered the symbols. I hadn't taken a picture of them, and that felt like a mistake now. I scanned the snow, half expecting to see them again. Maybe this time I could understand. But nothing appeared. It was dark, and winter's unwavering grip made it hard to see anything beyond the shadows. I decided to light a small fire, hoping its warmth would ease my nerves. As flames flickered to life, I felt slightly more at ease. The familiar crackling sound brought back memories of laughter, but just as quickly, the unease returned. Just then, I heard it. A soft crunch of snow behind me. I turned my head, but it was only the wind rustling through the trees. I chuckled nervously at my own paranoia. Yet deep down, the whispers and footsteps of the past echoed louder. After a while, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Footprints crisscrossed the area around my campsite. They were fresh, not more than a few hours old. I shot up, heart racing. The pattern of the prints didn't look like they belonged to any animal. The way they weaved around suggested someone had been watching me. I stared at them in disbelief. Why would anyone be out here? My imagination raced. What if it was a prank? Or worse, what if it wasn't? I felt it then, the same sensation that had haunted me 3 years ago. A prickling awareness that I wasn't alone. I needed to leave. I gathered my things quickly, adrenaline pumping through me. Just as I turned to head back to my car, I heard my name again. Jake. It was faint, almost like a whisper floating on the wind. Panic surged through me. I glanced back at the woods, desperate to see whoever or whatever was calling me. But the darkness revealed nothing. I bolted toward my car. As I reached it, I glanced back at the woods one last time. An outline stood between the trees, barely visible against the dark sky. I scurried into my car, heart pounding. The engine roared to life, and I sped off. It's been days since I returned home. But the woods and their secrets linger. Those prints and the shadow at the edge of my vision still feel tangible. What was it that watched me in the dark? I need to go back again, to find out. I know now that there's something more beneath the surface. Something that won't let me go. The following weekend, I made my decision. I had to go back. Something deep inside urged me to confront whatever was lingering in those woods. I packed my gear again and felt the weight of dread settle on my shoulders. But curiosity pulled me in, so off I went. This time I planned to arrive before sunset. I wanted to scope out the site in daylight. The road wound through the quiet landscape. Snow fell softly, blanketing everything in a fresh layer. It felt strange to be returning to a place that had become a source of both fascination and fear. When I finally reached the campsite, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the snow. The scene looked untouched, yet something felt off. The air was still too quiet. I parked the car and stepped out, but I hesitated. Maybe I should just turn around. Ignoring the feeling, I marched toward the fire pit. The footprints were gone. My heart sank. Had I imagined them? I knelt down, hoping to find some evidence of the past. As I brushed away snow, uncovering the old logs and charred remains, I spotted something odd. A small stick with a crude carving, half buried in the snow. I picked it up. It resembled a figure, crude but unmistakable. A face with hollow eyes stared back at me. Instinctively, I shivered. "What did you do?" I mumbled, feeling the weight of scrutiny linger. Then I heard it again. My name. Jake. This time, it was clearer. Not just a whisper. It carried urgency. My gut twisted. I swung around, scanning the tree line. Nothing. Only the skeletal branches swaying gently, mocking my anxiety. I decided to get to work. I set up camp as quickly as I could, deciding that keeping busy would fend off the creepiness. Yet, I felt eyes on me. Each crunch of snow felt like a summons. I fought against it, forcing my mind to focus. As darkness fell, I lit a fire, the warmth crackling against the chill. I sat near it, clutching the carved stick. Just as I was trying to shake off the unease, movement caught my eye. It was a flash, a shadow drifting past the edge of the clearing. I jumped to my feet, heart racing again. "Who's there?" I shouted into the dark. The only reply was the rustling of branches. The fire flickered, throwing skeletal shadows on the trees. I was alone. Or so I thought. I took a few steps forward, but then the unmistakable sound of crunching snow echoed back. The steps matched my own, and they were drawing closer. A fear deeper than before consumed me. I felt like prey in the woods, hunted. Just then, I remembered the symbols from that first trip. "I need to understand," I whispered to myself. I fumbled for my phone in my pocket, but there was no service. I cursed under my breath. Panic shot through me. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the pools of firelight. My breath caught. I couldn't move. It was a person, a silhouette, tall and thin, with no clear features. They stood still, watching me. I should have run, but I felt frozen. The figure raised an arm slowly, pointing at me. It felt like time had stopped. Why was this happening? Then it turned and disappeared back into the shadows. I blinked, trying to register what I had just seen, but in an instant, it was gone. I dashed back to the safety of my tarp, fear coiling around my insides. Whatever presence was watching, it was real. And now, I was certain that I had to confront it head-on. I huddled under the tarp, my heart racing in the silence. I needed to think straight, but the dread clung to me like the cold. What had I really seen? Was it a trick of the firelight? Or something else entirely? My mind swirled with questions, each more horrifying than the last. I glanced at the fire, its flames flickering, casting erratic shadows. For a moment I felt safe beside it. But the comfort was fleeting. The woods felt alive, thrumming with a presence that pressed against me. The figure had been unmistakably real. I needed more than just my instincts. I needed to know what I was dealing with. Taking a deep breath, I unzipped my backpack and pulled out a small flashlight. I flicked it on, the beam cutting through the dark. I aimed it toward the tree line, scanning for any signs of movement. Nothing. Just the skeletons of trees, their branches swaying gently in the wind. I stood up, not fully prepared for what may come next. I paced around the fire, gripping the stick tighter. As I did, my foot nudged something solid underneath the snow. I knelt down to investigate. My fingers brushed against what felt like a piece of fabric, rough and worn. I pulled it up. It was a small, tattered flag in shades of red and black. Symbols marred its surface, some similar to what I had seen before, others completely alien. My stomach turned. What had happened here? Why was this flag buried in the snow? Forcing myself to stay calm, I examined it further under the weak light. That's when I noticed a distinct shape, like a carved face, similar to the stick I had found earlier. But this one seemed almost angry, the features cruel and distorted. Suddenly the wind picked up, howling through the trees. It felt alive, almost as if it was trying to communicate. My heart started pounding again. This wind, it was different. It seemed to whisper. "Jake," it moaned, blending with the rustle of leaves. I shuddered, moving away from both the flag and the fire. I turned to head back toward the clearing, but an icy chill gripped me. Footsteps echoed behind me, heavy and deliberate, not like the soft crunch of snow I had heard before. I whipped around, but there was nothing there. Just the shivering branches beckoning to the shadows. "Who's there?" I called again, my voice trembling. The woods were silent, as if they were holding their breath. My earlier confidence dwindled. Maybe coming back was a mistake. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement again. My flashlight caught a glimpse of something. No. Someone. Darting behind a tree. It was quick, too swift to be human. Panic surged through me as I stumbled back toward the fire. I fumbled desperately for my gear. It was time to leave. But the woods seemed to close in around me, the darkness deepening. I caught my breath and looked towards the tree line once more. That's when I understood. The figure was a warning, not just to me, but to anyone who dared return. I felt it in my bones. I had trespassed on something ancient, something angry. As the final shadows of twilight dissolved into night, I heard it again, the whispered chant echoing through the trees. "Jake, Jake." There was urgency now, a demand. I had to find out what it wanted before it was too late. But as I turned back toward the clearing, my flashlight flickered and died. Everything went dark. The darkness closed around me like a heavy blanket. The fire flickered weakly, a faint glow in the vast black. I could barely see my hands in front of my face. Panic gripped me anew. I rummaged through my backpack again, desperate to find my backup flashlight. My fingers brushed against a few snacks, a water bottle, and finally, there it was. I pulled it out and clicked it on, squinting as the beam lit the area. The faint light revealed more of the clearing, but even with the flashlight in hand, dread curled at the edges of my mind. I attempted to focus on the path ahead, but my heart hammered louder with every minute I spent in the oppressive silence. I scanned the tree line once more. Just a trick of the light, I whispered to myself. I had to move, but the weight of unseen eyes made me hesitate. I took a cautious step toward the direction of my tent. That's when I noticed it. A trail. A series of small footprints pressed into the snow, leading away from my campfire and deeper into the woods. They were too small to be human, but too big for an animal. Small childlike prints, perhaps. My breath hitched. I shouldn't have followed, but my feet moved on their own. I crept forward, the beam of my flashlight dancing nervously across the snow. Each footprint felt like a pulsing heartbeat in the night, urging me to continue. I was too curious to turn back, even though every instinct screamed that it was a bad idea. After shuffling for what felt like an eternity, I stumbled into a clearing. The moon had emerged from behind the clouds, illuminating the area in an eerie glow. That's when I saw it. A dilapidated cabin, its wooden structure warped and covered in vines. My heart raced as new questions flooded my mind. Was this where the figure lived? Who had made those footprints? I didn't want to go any closer, yet an invisible force drew me in. As I approached the cabin, an unsettling feeling washed over me. I noticed the door was slightly ajar, swinging gently with the breeze. It creaked ominously, as if inviting me inside. I paused, unsure. Everything inside me screamed to turn back, but I couldn't. I had to know what was inside. Mustering my courage, I took a deep breath. I stepped closer to the door, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. As I pushed it open, I felt a gust of wind blow from within, chilling me to the bone. I peered inside, and my stomach dropped. The room was filled with items that sent a wave of panic rushing through me. Old toys, shattered glass, and strange symbols carved into the walls. Then I heard it, a sound that sent ice through my veins. A soft giggle, echoing through the shadows, unmistakably childlike. I took a step back, my heart pounding. I turned to run, but a shadow darted across my view, blocking my escape. Someone, or something, was standing in the doorway, and it wasn't alone. That's when I realized I was trapped. I had no choice. The shadow loomed larger, growing closer, and I could barely make out its shape against the dim light. Cold air wrapped around my throat, making it hard to breathe. I fumbled my flashlight, nearly dropping it, but caught it just in time. "Who's there?" I managed to call, my voice trembling. I prayed for a response, any sign that this was a misunderstanding. The figure stepped into the light. It was a child, no older than 6 or 7, with matted hair sticking out from under a tattered hat. Her eyes gleamed unnaturally in the flashlight's beam, and a smile spread across her face, revealing missing teeth. "Why are you in my house?" she asked, her voice eerily sweet. I blinked, trying to process the surreal scene unfolding before me. "Your house?" I stammered, backing away slowly. "I'm not here to... I just followed the footprints." "Footprints?" the girl interrupted, giggling again. It was the same sound I had heard earlier. She seemed childlike, and yet there was something off about her. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a normal encounter. "What are you doing out here?" I tried to sound steady, but the fear I felt was evident in my voice. "I'm playing," she replied, tilting her head. "You're not supposed to be here. It's dangerous." Her innocent tone chilled me. Something about the cabin, and her, felt wrong. I wanted to run, but I was frozen in place. Suddenly, a noise broke through the tension. A door creaked open from the far side of the cabin. I directed my flashlight toward it, and a darker figure stepped out, looking much larger than the girl. My stomach dropped. A man, gaunt and ragged, emerged. His clothes hung loosely on his bony frame, and his eyes were sunken deep into his skull. He glanced at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. He didn't speak but seemed to survey me with curiosity, as if I were a curiosity he had found in the woods. "Lila, come here," he commanded, not taking his eyes off me. The girl immediately skipped to his side, her giggles fading into silence. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Just a friend," he replied with a hint of menace. I felt the urge to scream, but no sound left my lips. I was trapped, caught between the sinister playfulness of the girl and the raw danger radiating from the man. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me as I searched for an escape route. The girl's innocent demeanor had completely vanished, replaced by a predatory look, as if she already knew my fear. "Do you want to play with us?" she asked, her smile widening. My heart raced. Play? With them? The sick sense of dread turned in my stomach. I needed to get away. Suddenly, the man took a step forward. "You've wandered too far. The woods have a way of keeping those who don't listen." A shiver ran through me. I glanced at the door behind me, my only chance. If I was fast enough, I could reach it, get out, and before I could think, I turned and ran, shoving past the girl as I launched myself out of the cabin and into the night. The cold air slammed into me like a wall, but I didn't stop. I raced through the clearing, my flashlight bouncing wildly, illuminating the path ahead. But as I reached the edge of the tree line, I heard the laughter again, echoing behind me. And this time, it wasn't the girl's giggle. It was the man's low, sinister laugh, echoing into the night. I dove deeper into the forest, heart racing, the urgency of escape dominating every thought. But the forest suddenly felt alive, shadows shifting in my periphery. I stumbled, hope draining as I realized I had no idea where I was going. The laughter, now closer, made my blood run cold. I had escaped the cabin, but what had I truly escaped from? As bark scraped my skin and branches clawed at me, one thought blared in my mind. The night was far from over. I pushed through the underbrush, panting heavily as I fought to keep my footing. The laughter echoed behind me, merging with the wind. It felt like a grotesque song, dark and taunting. I could almost hear the man's voice repeating, "You've wandered too far." Everything was a blur of shadows and trees. The flashlight flickered, and for one terrifying moment, darkness enveloped me. I swung my arm, trying to find a branch or something solid to hold on to, but my foot caught on a root. I fell hard against the cold ground. Pain shot through my ankle, but I couldn't stay down. I pushed myself up, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. Just as I got to my feet, a chilling scream cut through the woods. It was Lila. I hesitated, fear clashing with instinct. Should I run, or should I go back? I felt a sharp tug at my conscience. There was something wrong with that girl, something dark and twisted. But that scream, that was pure terror. As I stood there, frozen, I heard soft footsteps approaching. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the flickering light of my flashlight's beam dancing in the distance. I was losing precious moments. That's when I noticed it. A faint glow illuminating an opening to my right. A clearing just ahead, bathed in an otherworldly light. It seemed like a beacon amidst the darkness. My gut warned me, but the tug of curiosity was stronger. What if I found a way out? I limped toward the glow, each step causing fresh pain to ripple through my ankle. The laughter faded, but the chilling feeling didn't. In the clearing, I found something unexpected. A large, old tree stood at the center, its gnarled roots twisting out from the earth like something alive. The floor was covered in a strange mist that curled around my feet. Intrigued, I stepped closer. That's when I saw it. A small, shining object half buried in the leaves at the base of the tree. I knelt down, reaching for it. It was a wooden carving, worn but recognizable. A figure of a child with wide, vacant eyes. As I held it up, the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. It looked just like Lila. Panic surged through me, and I dropped it, horror coursing through my veins. The woods seemed to respond to my fear, the mist swirling violently at my feet. I turned, desperate to flee back into the darkness. But the clearing was no longer empty. Figures emerged from the trees, shadows shifting and coalescing into the twisted shapes of the man and the girl. Their eyes glowed, reflecting the light of the moon. "What did you find?" the man asked, his tone deceptively smooth, yet laced with something sinister. Before I could respond, he stepped forward. The space around us chilled, and I could feel the pull of whatever dark magic resonated from the tree. "We're just playing," Lila said, her voice like a song, playful, yet eerie. In that moment, I realized I hadn't truly escaped anything. I had wandered right into their game. And now, I was the piece they wanted to toy with. Just then, the clearing darkened, and everything went quiet. The air thickened, charged with tension. I could feel their gaze, waiting for my next move. Then, without warning, the laughter returned, a chorus echoing through the trees. I backed away slowly, knowing this night was far from over. My next move would decide not just my fate, but perhaps that of others who had wandered too close to the shadows. My heart raced as the laughter echoed around me, wrapping tightly like a noose. I took a step back, feeling the mist creep higher around my ankles. The figures in front of me shifted, their forms flickering between the shadows and moonlight. This was no game. "Why are you doing this?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. Fear tightened my throat. The man stepped closer, his grin wide, revealing crooked teeth that gleamed under the pale moonlight. "Because you're lost," he replied, tilting his head like a predator assessing its prey. "And lost things belong to us." A chill coursed through me. I turned to run, but the thick mist swirled around my legs, pulling me back. It was like trying to escape quicksand. I could feel the presence of the tree behind me, raw and ancient, its roots whispering secrets I didn't want to hear. "Stay with us!" Lila chimed, her laughter sweeter than the man's, but with an edge that struck fear. She stepped forward, the mist pooling around her feet. "We can play forever!" Flashes of what could happen filled my mind. I could disappear like the others I sensed had come before me, lost souls trapped in this nightmare. No, I wouldn't let that happen. I took a deep breath, trying to push the wave of panic aside. I had to think. Suddenly something flickered in the corner of my eye. I turned back toward the massive tree, and my pulse quickened. The carving I had dropped glowed faintly, almost beckoning me. A spark of determination ignited within me. Maybe it was the answer. Maybe it held the key to fighting back. "Let's play a different game," I said, trying to sound confident. I took a step closer to the tree, focusing on the carving. "What if we find something together? Something better?" The man's brows knitted together, a hint of curiosity flickering in his eyes. "You would share?" "Yes," I said, forcing a smile, trying to keep his interest. "But first, I need to find it again." I crouched to pick up the carving, feeling the cool wood beneath my fingers. Lila giggled, and for a moment, the intensity of their previous demeanor softened. "Okay, show us," she urged, her glow shifting with excitement. I held the figure aloft, praying it would work. "This," I said, looking the man in the eyes. "This is what you want, right? Something you can play with?" His eyes narrowed, measuring. "You think you can bargain?" Bargain? I was desperate. I just needed a window, an opening for escape. "No, I want to play, I'll help you." I could see the gears turning in the man's mind. "Very well, show us what it can do." As I clutched the carving tightly, the air thickened, pressing against my chest. I could feel something shifting in the atmosphere, the fabric of reality stretching. My pulse quickened. Perhaps in my gamble, I had sealed my fate. Just then, the laughter swelled, louder and more chaotic, shaking the leaves of the trees around us. In that swirling moment, I felt a pull from the carving. It tingled with energy, a jolt that surged through my veins. Then, in a blink, the clearing around us began to fade. The figures writhed, the mist recoiling as barriers closed in. Panic washed over me again as the gravity of the situation crashed down. "Get back!" I yelled, my voice cutting through the chaos. But their eyes glinted, hungering for me like shadows drawn to light. The mist contorted, and there was an unsettling shift, as if reality was unraveling. What had I started? The darkness swirled tighter, and I knew I had only seconds to decide. Fight or flight. I had unwittingly reopened the game. "Help!" I screamed, my voice lost in the dissonant laughter surrounding me. As the clearing dissolved around me, I felt a sudden tug. The carving pulled me, an urgent signal that I couldn't ignore. I squeezed it tighter, gripping it like a lifeline. My breath turned shallow, and panic threatened to overwhelm me. The laughter intensified, a jarring symphony that echoed through my skull. "What's it going to be?" the man taunted, the glee in his voice a sinister undertone that made my skin crawl. Lila danced around him, her playful movements contrasting with the terror spiraling inside me. "There's no escaping, you know," she chimed. "You're just a toy in our game now." "Not if I can help it," I shot back, struggling to channel my fear into something stronger. The carving still glowed with a soft energy, and I recalled its intricate details. Maybe it was imbued with some kind of magic. What if it could act as a shield? "Let's see your tricks," the man goaded. The mist thickened, swirling faster, and I had to think quickly. I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to turn the tide. I closed my eyes for a heartbeat, recalling the calm that washing over me whenever I focused on the carving. I directed all my will toward it, willing it to work. But instead of clarity, a flash of confusion crashed over me. The ground beneath me trembled, and a low rumble erupted from the depths of the earth. Was it reacting to my fear or my need? I had no time to waste. "Come on," I pleaded, almost begging the carving to give me something. In response, a breeze picked up, pulling at my clothes and sending the mist swirling higher. The laughter faltered, a crack in the facade, a pause. "What is this?" the man asked, suddenly wary. "I don't know," I admitted. But I couldn't let them see my doubt. I raised the carving above my head. "But I know you want it. I want you to stop." The mist quivered, hesitating as if pulled in two directions. "Foolish child!" Lila shrieked, her eyes narrowing. "You don't truly understand what you're playing with." But there was something amiss. I could feel it. The ground shuddered again, and cracks began to snake across the clearing, dark and foreboding. I had disrupted something powerful. "It's working," I yelled. "I can change the game." The man's grin faltered for a second, then morphed into anger. "Enough!" His voice bellowed, and he lunged forward, mist cascading around him like a wave. "You're headed for trouble." I stumbled back as the ground split wider, and the world tilted. The tree roots writhed, battling the creeping mist. Suddenly, I was being torn in two directions. The tree held its ground, begging me to come closer, while the man and Lila reached for me, their hands grasping at my very soul. "Now!" I screamed, harnessing the chaotic energy of the moment. I hurled the carving deeper into the mist, praying it would shift fate. The moment it left my hand, everything exploded. The glowing figure disintegrated into thousands of shards, bursting like fireworks. "No!" Their voices screamed in unison, the mist swirling violently, ripping at the edges of reality. Then, a blinding light engulfed the clearing, and I felt suspended in air, weightless. It surrounded me like a cocoon, promising safety as the laughter turned to shrieks of fury. But then came a new realization. Something was shifting beneath me. The ground threatened to swallow everything. I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for impact, wondering if I was truly changing the game, or merely sealing my fate. And just before everything went dark, I swear I heard another voice, softer and almost familiar, whispering, "Help is on the way." When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on the snowy ground, starlight spilling down from above. The air was crisp, and for a fleeting moment, the serenity of the moment made the chaos a distant memory. I blinked hard, fully expecting the shadows from the clearing to creep back in. But my surroundings were nothing like the twisted nightmare I had left. Surrounded by the soft, crunching snow, it took me a moment to register I was back at the campsite. The fire, long extinguished, lay cold and lifeless, the sky stretching overhead in a sprawling canvas of stars. The cabin was gone, as were the sinister figures that had trapped me. I sat up, disbelief washing over me. Where had it all gone? A vague comfort swept through me, revealing a strange yet profound sense of relief. I was free, or so I thought. Scanning the area, the only evidence of my trial was the faint outlines of my footprints leading up to where I lay. My heart still raced, and the emptiness of the woods around me was chilling, but there remained an uneasiness settled within my chest. I was alive, but had I escaped? I felt compelled to stand, to return to the car waiting patiently in the snow. I shook off the dread as best I could, gathering my gear and taking a few deep breaths under the crisp winter air. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed it. A soft glint catching the moonlight near the remnants of the campfire. Curious, I stumbled over to where the light was beckoning. In the snow, half buried, was the wooden carving, the figure of the child with the vacant eyes, somehow intact. I hesitated, my hand hovering just above it. How was this even possible? Hadn't I scattered it into oblivion? I picked it up gingerly, its weight somehow familiar. A chill ran down my spine as I thumbed the smooth edges, disbelief and recognition fighting within me. This singular object seemed to pulse with its own energy. What had I really unleashed? A rustle from the trees snapped my attention back to the woods. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. "Keep moving," I whispered to myself, almost feebly. But the night held its breath, and that same chill returned, as though I had been summoned back. With reluctant footsteps, I turned once more towards the path leading back to my car. But the wood felt heavier, thicker. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, teasing the sanctity of newfound freedom. I struggled to shake off the feeling that eyes were watching, not just inside the woods, but from beyond, aligning me as part of their twisted game. The quiet stretched and became almost suffocating. I paused, looking back at the clearing from which I had emerged, the peaceful facade of the night laying heavy over the terror I had faced. But deep down, there was something under that calm. A knowing unease nestled in my gut. As I reached my car, I glanced back one last time. The woods were still. The snow blanketed everything as if sheltering it from the reality of what had transpired. Were they saviors or threats? I couldn't tell. My mind spun with possibilities, not just what I had seen, but what I had felt. I drove away with the carving nestled on the passenger seat, a thread connecting the past and the unknown present. As I followed the winding road away from the forest, echoes of laughter lingered behind me, floating gently on the winter breeze. Just like that, the woods fell silent. But the truth remained. I might have escaped, but a part of me would always be tethered to the shadows, entangled in the mystery of what lay beneath the frost. I guess I'll never know for sure what they wanted, or why my name still echoed faintly through the trees. Jake. Jake. It was a question unanswered, and even though I had left the woods behind, I could not shake the feeling that the woods were still watching, still waiting.